Well, quite a fundamental question. What is chess? The answer is very wide, let's say. Well, of course, it's. I mean, I do not go through these things that it's a sport, an art, and a science at the same time. We all know this, or a fight, or I think it's just a way of being. I mean, a way of expressing yourself. This fact that it's a universal language. I mean, you can play with a Chinese player, you don't understand what he's writing, but the truth is there, and it's symbolized by the chess pieces. I think that's one of the most formidable things, let's say. Okay, it's also all this thing, I mean, traveling and the tournament atmosphere. Every tournament has its own life. I mean, when you finish a tournament or when you finish a game, it's like dying a bit, let's say. I mean, not really dying, but it's like you ended some important part of your life. Because they say that theater is a life and life is a theater. I think that the same applies to chess. I mean, not only the chessboard, but generally speaking, the world of chess and the tournament. And you go back and okay, it's like when you go back to real life, it's like getting away from a dream. I mean, you had this dream of one game, one good move, one good moment of inspiration, one tournament, and then you wake up, and it's the real life, which is not necessarily bad, but chess it can fulfill, I think, most of your emotional and creative and all these needs. When Korchinoi says that chess was his life, I believe him. I mean, I'm also the kind. I mean, okay, there are important things in life, of course, people, friends, family, but as a way of being, of thinking, of feeling, I think chess is very satisfactory, let's say. It fulfills, it makes you feel fulfilled. And it's good against depressions, against all kind of things. I mean, you just have a goal in your life to play the best game ever, or the best tournament ever. So I'm happy that I'm a chess player and a chess professional. I'm not professional as a chess player anymore. I'm writing, recording videos, sometimes coaching. I'm mainly playing for fun. But chess life is very nice. Well, chess history. I mean, history in general. The history in general, and chess history is no exception. Teaches us that. Well, there is nothing really new. I mean, people from all the times, they had the same feelings. They say, I mean, we are people. I mean, now, or I had yesterday this lecture where I included a game of Greco, and it was very surprising because with Greco you would think, well, that's just some games in 12 moves with mates, just combination, bluffs or something like that. But no, there was a game which is very modern in its way, and of course, if we speak of the times of Anderson or Morphy, Stanislavski, we see more such things. Well, generally speaking, of course, the level of accuracy was lower. But there are games which are very accurate and very creative, very maybe, let's say, a strong grandmaster from those days. He would play an accurate game at the level we understand accuracy nowadays. Maybe once in 5 games, or let's say twice or 3 times in a long tournament, no? Because otherwise they would have nice concepts, but concretely they would not be so accurate. I mean, the computer would immediately shout that no, this is not a good move. Which, in my opinion, does not reduce the merits of the creativity, but some of I'm looking for those games which are at the level of today. I mean, you should not be shy. Once I read that Fischer had declared that there is nothing new since the games of Morphy. And of course he's exaggerated. But actually I think he had something like this in mind. And he was apparently he was studying the Bilguer, for instance, which was some sort of first opening encyclopedia in this table format, first published in 1850, and then it had 8 editions. So this Bilguer, and I know he used to check those lines. I have 2 editions of the Bilguer in my house, but I must confess I was lazy and I did not check. But he was looking for inspiration there, and Probably it was not in the opening because he was playing modern openings, but something in the spirit, something in the. I mean, you see how those people were thinking, and it's very basic. I mean, they don't have preconcepts. But actually, okay, speaking about this, that there's nothing new. For instance, when I was a kid, I had these Soviet monographies openings, and some of them typically started with something like, oh, well, given the huge amount of practical material which has accumulated over the past years, there was a need to publish this book. Nowadays, with the computer, we have the same feeling. I mean, it's a huge material, so we need a computer. But you know how this introduction started in the Bilguet? Very much the same. So we're speaking about 1850, and the Bilguet is such a book, such a thick book, big. So even then they were thinking that there is an informatic explosion somehow. So you see, actually, it's the same for each historic period. The same things happen, but of course, they should be compared to the level of activity in that moment. So, of course, they could not deal with the computer. I mean, it would be a shock. But still, I mean, we are confronted with the same kind of basic problems. So, this is one of the most wonderful things history teaches us. I mean, we are not more clever, we are not different. I mean, people are people. We are people all the time, and you can learn from the guys from the past, of course. And it even opens you it gives you some sensation of freshness. Because now you're just looking at the computer, this is 1000 games, you don't remember anything. Sometimes I just remember a game of Fortuna we played in the 70s, and I said, oh, maybe I played that opening. And usually it works because nobody expected. I mean, history is great because it puts us together on the same level. You know, but of course you have to study little by little. So, and imagine that we will be history after 100 years too. So imagine how they will smile at us with our i7 computers. But I think the station is always the same. It's always, the end of the world is always, particularly it's probably happening every day or in generation but of course it's we are all at the same level. I mean, starting with the antiquity, I mean, we're just human. We have the same feelings, same thoughts, and make the same mistakes. For instance, Anand's defense against Karpov from yesterday in that simulation game was not necessarily better than Greco's opponent's defense. So he had practical problems, he didn't know how to solve them, and made one bad move, and then he lost opposite card bishops. Of course, we know much more now. That doesn't mean nothing. I mean, okay, we are created after a certain model. We're all humans, of course. We are different. Each of us, they were unique, but there are some things that stay for the generations or centuries. And of course, then there are those things that change. I mean, each champion brings something new, starting from Stanis with Kasparov and also Kramnik and now Carlsen. They all brought something. But it's always turning around. I mean, the truth is like this: we turn around, and every time we advance a bit upwards, but we don't go straight. No, this is impossible. We just the fashion takes us like this, and we focus the truth from several angles, and then we make the next step upwards. So, but this has been from the beginning. The game of chess is finite, but according to what I read, I mean, the number of possible moves or positions in chess is bigger than the number of atoms from the universe. So I think we have the same chance to solve the game of chess as to know the whole universe. I mean, it's very similar if we think of it, even with computers. I mean, and now if you ask me how much closer we are, it's difficult to say because of course, geometrically it looks that we are very close, but now every step is now more difficult because you get closer and and then you go slower and slower and slower. So I don't think that, let's say, if well, Greco was in the beginning because chess came to Europe somewhere in the 15th or 16th century. So, and chess without rules, with castling and two squares for the pawn on the initial move is like this since then. But let's say if we take Philidor's time, so I don't think that, for instance, Steinitz could claim that he was much closer to the truth compared to Philidor than Philidor with respect to Greco. Or let's say 100 years later, Kasparov compared to Steinitz. I mean, I think it's more or less similar. I mean, we seem to be very close. Yeah. It's the end of the world. It's the end. But I think it's an illusion. I mean, it depends on how you look at it. I mean, if you look at it like this, just geometrical scale, then yeah, we're very close. I mean, these guys know nothing. But I don't think it's always. I mean, each generation brings its own contribution, and sometimes we forget things. Actually, sometimes we forget things from the past. I mean, I remember that fortunately, okay, he lost the game to Gelfand, but he played a very interesting game, and apparently Gelfand made the mistake of telling in the post-mortem analysis that he had not seen some of Korchnoi moves, so he didn't trust them or something like that. And Korchnoi said, "Oh, these young guys, they lack romanticism." So, I mean, okay, it's typical Korchnoi. I mean, he sometimes says nasty things, but there is some truth in it. I mean, now we are so worried about the ratings, about getting the prize. We have shorter time than they had, let's say, in the 60s, 70s. We're just playing a perpetual time travel almost, no? Oh, here it's okay because we get a half an hour after move 40, but in some other tournaments we don't have them. So we start being afraid of. I mean, a player like Spassky, of course he didn't calculate his attack until the end, but he just went for it. He sacrificed his change, the piece, and stood played with several pawns for a rook, just because he was thinking, I mean, that's his chess, that's what he believes in. So I'm not sure many players do that nowadays. Somehow they miss this chance, because okay, when they try to do it at home, they see that the computer sometimes refutes their lines, and but okay, I mean, and the middle game, if they have an unknown position, sometimes they have this fear that, oh, I might drop rating, I may not get the prize, and probably the computer will say it's not correct, and maybe my opponent will see it. So it's this some sort of inhibition, let's say. I speak also about myself. I mean, it's not that I'm saying that. I mean, I think it was nice when you had 5 hours for 40 moves and a lot of free days. And I remember that I played 3 tournaments of 17 rounds, and those were not even the longest tournaments. And the tournaments with 20 rounds, 2 rounds. In Indonesia, they had a tournament of 30 rounds. So I mean, that's chess, you know. I mean, you're just there and trying to do the best in every game, and the end of the tournament is somewhere very far. You don't really think, okay, I lose this, then the tournament is over. No. So it was more freedom of. But nowadays, okay, we jump from one tournament to another. We have no free days. Sometimes we have double rounds. Time is shorter. We don't jump. I mean, the end game we play over the board. So of course there are many inaccuracies. So I think that some things are lost. Maybe this romanticism, as Korchnoi called it, without speaking about anything in concrete, but I think he was basically right. And actually, it is also not something new, because I remember that Botvinnik said that in the 70s chess became more pragmatical, and he was disappointed. Of course, it was some bitterness in what he said, because he was already over 60. He stopped playing chess somewhere in 69, I think. But okay, we should also think that in 70 or 71, the first rating list was published. And also that after Fischer's claim that he should be paid well for playing chess, prizes became higher in tournaments. So maybe, I mean okay, this even Botvinnik had this feeling 40 years ago. Yes? So maybe even this is perpetual. I mean, even this thing that you lose. you learn some things, but you lose cheerfulness. No, maybe even this is not something. So, I mean, okay, each player at his own level, he's okay, strong for himself, strong for, let's say, his club, and weak if we compare him with, okay, for instance, you with Grandmasters or me with Carlsen. So, I mean, there's each of one has this feeling that okay, he has reached a certain level that makes him happy, but he knows that he is limited and he will never be okay. I don't know how Carlsen feels. Of course, when you are a world champion, then it's a little bit end of the world, no? Maybe this is what made Fischer give up playing, no? Because he was a purist, no? He was a pure character, so he was doing everything for chess. So somehow he had no goal. I don't know. It was he disappeared after 72, and okay, when he reappeared, okay, he was kind of strange. Still a very strong player, but kind of strange statement. So what do you need to be a strong player? I mean, yeah, the killer instinct helped many world champions, of course, but for instance, Maslov, his favorite idol for his collection of books, which was published in several languages and several editions, I mean, not identical, was in the search of the harmony. So actually, he was not really glad with his killing instinct. He felt the harmony of the pieces of the board, of maybe the feelings he had in. So I don't think that everybody is has this killer instinct. For instance, for me, it's very important that I keep my calm within the game, no matter how complicated or good or bad the position is. I have to stay calm and to evaluate concretely what. I don't think I really have good feeling. I mean, we all have it in small, because we want to win. We feel happy for you know. But it's more like a confirmation that we did right what we did in the game. So it's a sort of fulfillment, let's say. Of course, if you think of Porchnoi or Kasparov, you can see from what they say how they act in the games that they have a killer instinct. But no, I don't think that it's necessary. Probably yes. But it depends on everybody what it means, a killer instinct. I mean, if it's personal, then it's not good. I mean, I don't like the situations when you hate your opponent. I mean, that's not the spirit. Let's say instead of killer instinct, let's say it's better to say in a wider sense to catch the moment, to take your chance. I mean, when you feel you are there, you just go for it. But it can be like, I don't know, not necessarily to have this killing component. I mean, just know it's your moment and you just go. You run, you go. Well, in other sports too. You are alone in soccer. You are alone. You have the ball, and you're alone with you're running alone, and then you know that's your chance. So you put all your effort to be the fastest and to reach there and to score. So the same in chess. When you have the moment, you should be there. You should be present in the moment and enjoy it, of course. Enjoy it. Just abandon yourself to the fight, to the struggle. This is what I like more, because killing. Okay, when I say killing instinct, we take it strictly. It's not what chess is about. Sometimes you have this that you get some deep insight in the position, and it lasts maybe less than 1 second. Also in life it happens, no? And actually Thomas Mann described such a moment very well in the Magic Mountain. And you understand the secrets of the universe, no? And then 1 minute later you don't remember actually what it has, but it's that moment of grace when you think you understood and you go for it. And it's after the game is over, you don't remember actually what you cannot even reconstruct your variations or whatever. But that moment you are one with chess. You are the game of chess. So that's what's really nice. This is what I feel by the killer instinct. Well. I can only say that Denmark is a new country for me. I have never been here, and which is strange because I traveled a lot. But I'm very happy to be here. And some for the tournament, I think it gives me the opportunity to feel that I'm a chess player. Even though I told you I play somehow like as an amateur, I don't rely on the income from tournaments and I don't play so much anymore. But it's important if you feel in tournament that you can really play chess. I mean, you play, okay, you suffer, you're afraid. I mean, amateurs maybe they suffer more than professionals. This I understood when I started writing that no, you can never be an amateur. That you just go, you smile, you play, you win, you lose, and then you start again. No. Probably amateurs are worse than the professionals. They suffer more. They need it more to win because it's their own ego. And, so I think that this political cup is of course a very famous tournament. I feel it's a very nice place to be and start feeling alive as a chess player. Yeah, when you got rid of all your inhibitions. I mean, you saw the worst. You saw the worst of it. I mean, if you were man enough not to start hitting your head of the walls, then you can actually be yourself and have certain depths of, I mean, just be sincere. No, not consciously, but absolutely sincere somehow. Because okay, we all say we are sincere, but how many of us can? Because we don't know each other so well. But whenever it's like if you know how to take it, it can be a very special moment. You are hurt. You feel everything mentally, physically. So you can give us a good answer. That's the point. Of course, I don't want that this happens too frequently. But okay, when it happens, at least this is the best thing in you just reset yourself.